Welcome to another installment of Book Talk with Tracy. I have been talking about my series, Three Strand Cord, over the last several segments. And today I want to talk about the final book in the series, which is Tempest Tossed. For those that have read the books or have been following along with the book talks, you'll know that the three main characters from the first book are Tempest, Stella, and Charisse, who are best friends, and they've been friends since they were in school. Well, you can probably guess from the title that Tempest Tossed focuses on Tempest from those three, and it's interesting how I came to write this book. It actually, I wasn't even going to write a third book in the series. I had mentioned a couple of segments ago that after I finished writing the first book, Three Strand Cord, I just had this really nagging sensation that there was so much more that needed to be said. And I wrote book 2, Blood Ties. But I didn't really... I tossed around the idea of writing a third book because I wasn't totally satisfied with how Tempest's relationship ended up. I felt like her story wasn't really told. Her happily ever after didn't really have the same meat to it that Stella and Charisse got. And so I could have left it where it was at. The implication was that she had found her love and things, and, you'd assume that everything was going well. But I just felt like, I think there's more to what happens to her. And so the more I thought about it, the more I realized I really wanted to write this last book. And I actually wrote it during a Nanowrimo challenge. For those of you who know what that is, it's writing 50,000 words in the month of November. So one year I did that. I thought, you know what, I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to flesh this out. And once I started writing it, ideas just came to me that I hadn't actually considered before. So the book is about Tempest. And it's about Ryan, who she does end up with at the end of book 1, and he's also referenced in book 2. So we assume that their relationship is okay, but there's just a whole lot more to it than that. And so I wanted to sort of delve a little more deeply and bring them through some rough and rocky patches in book 3. And in keeping with the other series, I wanted to bring in some danger and some intrigue as well. So once again, we've got drugs, we've got police involvement, we've got mistaken identity, we've got kidnapping, we've got murder. And then this time I also brought in a diamond smuggling operation. So there's lots of intrigue and, things going on like that. As well, it's just similar to what had happened in the first 2 books, but of course with a little bit of a different thread. And one of the things that I was at first a little bit stumped on who would be the third character, because if you've been reading the series, each book has 3 main characters. So each book follows 3 separate storylines from 3 different points of view and then is woven together at the end. And so in book 1 we have Tempest, Stella, and Charisse, the big 3. In book 2 we continue with Charisse, but her brother Dirk and Blue Shepherd, who was in book 1 as well. And that made sense to me. And so for book 3, obviously I was going with Tempest and with Ryan, but I couldn't quite put my finger on who the third character should be, but I knew there needed to be a third character. And then it dawned on me, it's Anne-Marie, the nurse who Dirk falls in love with in book 2. And again, I could have left that story alone because, it's the assumption is that they're going to live happily ever after. But I began to see that there was enough flaws and enough holes in their relationship that really wasn't the case. And so I wanted to delve a little bit more deeply into Anne-Marie and her character. And one of the things about her that's interesting is that she's a Canadian, like me, and she's from Edmonton. That was already established in book 2. And that she's a nurse. And so then I got to be thinking about how I could bring her into the intrigue, how I could, give her and Dirk a satisfying conclusion to their relationship. And so the whole book really came together nicely once I started writing. Probably more than I would have expected when I first started out, because as I said, I wasn't even sure if this book needed to be written. But once I got writing it, I realized, this is the final wrapping up of the story of these 3 women. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about some interesting locations, including more about that diamond smuggling business. But I think I'll save that for next time, because I do try to keep these fairly short. So thanks for tuning in. This is Book Talk with Tracy. I really appreciate any reviews. If you've read any of my books, these or any others, you can find me online at my website, which is tracykraus.com, TracyKraus. And I will see you again next time, where we talk a little bit more about diamonds. See you then.